do it live. Okay. We'll do it live.
Drop the mic with Jason Hunt.
Nice. How do you like Guadalajara?
It's a really big town. I like to compare it to, it's like, if you've been to Mexico City, which is sort of the New York City of Mexico, Guadalajara is like Chicago. There's still a lot to do, but it's sort of less touristy, and it's really big, and it's cool. It's a cool city. It's really hot right now, so I wouldn't recommend it. They don't, it's not usually this hot, and so it's not like a big air conditioned place.
Are you on the water, Guadalajara?
No, but I'll be in Puerto Vallarta this weekend, which is in the same state, Jalisco. So I will be on the beach, which is part of why I'm on Guadalajara. It's like on the way there.
So as a digital nomad, you decided to drop anchor in Guatemala. Why?
Well, I was just really sort of on the way. Well, I spent a lot of time in Mexico, at Mexico City, Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, because they're just really fun cities. I like the vibes. They have really good WeWorks. They have really good internet. The time zone, for the most part, is really good for remote work. I like Mexican food. So I just spent 3 months in Europe, and so this is sort of my transition back into the Americas. And then I'm going to go up, and I have jury duty in Maryland, so I got to go do that. I'm going to go head to the Poly Awards, which is a political consultant awards out in Denver. So I'll be doing my America tour soon.
Yeah, the jury duty brings you back, eh? Can't get away.
I think I did 5 times. I said, delay, and then the last one didn't give me that. That wasn't an option. So
I'm always curious as a digital nomad, going around, trying to check out different places, because you're not just there for 1 or 2 weeks, which most, frequent business travelers are doing. You are dropping anchor in a location for a fixed period of time, going to the local supermarkets, meeting the local people, getting to live as a local. And so out of all the countries you've been to as a digital nomad, does one stand out above the rest?
Well, I'm really partial to Colombia. I've spent a lot of time in Bogota, for similar reasons to Mexico City, where it's like this big metropolitan place that it shares a similar like time zone to the U.S. So it's like easy to work from, and it's super beautiful. People are nice. In Europe, you do this weird thing where you have like your days off. So you're like, you wake up and you've got until like 3 o'clock, or in some places like 4 o'clock in the afternoon before New York City turns on, which in my life is like when the day starts. And so it's a very different kind of world, because you get to it's much slower, because you wake up and you've got like your whole kind of day before your email starts coming at you. Whereas, when you're in Latin America, I'm 2 hours behind New York. So when I wake up and my emails are already blowing up.
I never liked watching like NFL football in Europe. It's like the 1 o'clock start at 7, yeah. And it goes straight to like 4 in the morning. I always preferred being on the West Coast for that. But
I've watched the Super Bowl in Bogota, and that was fun. It's not super popular, but you find a Irish pub, and that's where you get all your expats.
What time would it be in Bogota?
Oh, it's just like, it's an hour difference. So
that's it. Yeah. Got it. Cool. Well, let's dive in, Ryan, to your past, to your history, and specifically your journey began in theater direction, right? Now that's kind of a quantum leap to digital strategy, right? So maybe explain that, what got you into theater, what really, wet your whistle and got you interested, and then that transition over to the digital space.
Sure. So I think if you go all the way back, the 2 things I was always interested in as a kid was the internet. I had Prodigy in 1992. I was 10 years old, and I had back then, like, you had these really long email addresses that were sort of nonsensical, and then the main account ended with an A, and B was like the second account. So it was like, I think of it as like the Bernstein Bears, you know, the father, the papa bear, the mother bear. So I was like C, because, you know, my dad and my mom had A and B. So I had my email address. So I was always into the internet, and I was always into like the local theater and film and entertainment. And so, you know, I studied theater direction, and then, you know, I moved to New York. I studied theater direction, and then the war in Iraq happens, and I got very political, and I go off and I joined the Howard Dean campaign. And Howard Dean, you know, did not become president, didn't get close, but was really the campaign is well known and respected for the internet innovation. So, you know, early use of blog and email. And
What year? What year?
2004.
Yeah.
So this is pretty early, and you know, I had this weird position where I kind of showed up, and they were like, "What do you know how to do?" And I'm like, "I'm really good at the internet." And they were like, "Cool, go on the internet." And so, you know, I was writing blogs, and I'm editing videos, and at that point, you know, it was still sort of like Real Player. You know, I don't know if you remember that, but you had to click, and for a video to down 30-second video, it would take like an hour, and then it would do like one frame at a time. So you know, I was doing that, and then, you know, we had built this sort of big online community really around our blog and our email, and nobody really understood what that looked like in the real world. So the campaign manager, Joe Trippi, said to Zephyr Teachout, who was sort of the head of the internet organizing, go out into the country and meet with all these people and figure it out. So I went with her, and we went to 36 states. And we met with the people online who supported Howard Dean, you know, in Nebraska and in Iowa and in all these sort of places around the country, and saw what that internet campaign looked like in real life. And that was super interesting at the time, because nobody knew, you know, are these real people behind these email addresses, you know.
So going back in time, back to 2004, pre-Facebook, I mean, maybe MySpace existed at the time. So was it just really predominantly email that you were leveraging for that specific campaign, or what other avenues were you exploring?
So email and blog were the big ones. The blog was huge. We used it all the time. It was integrated with the email campaign. But beyond that, our big tool was Meetup.com. And Meetup.com, you went and you put in your zip code and you said, I like to knit. And it would connect you to other people in your community who also like to knit. And you could go and you can meet with them, and you could do a knitting circle. So, you know, somebody on the campaign had the wise idea early on to put Howard Dean on there as an interest. And then it sort of started to self-perpetuate. And there started to be a lot of Howard Dean organizing kind of popping up on Meetup.com. The campaign saw this and very wisely said, like, okay, who is the leader in Cincinnati? It's Bill T. Let's reach out to Bill, get his mailing address, and then every month before the meetup, send him a DVD. This is, you know, you can't send a video link. Send him a DVD and some stickers, so everybody who comes, you know, gets something. So that became like a whole thing, these like monthly meetups. And the other platforms back then would have been news groups. Message boards were really big, like a lot of conversations happening on message boards. And then the blogosphere, who were like the early internet influencers, people like Daily Kos and Matthew Iglesias, Ezra Klein. These are people who were like blogging about politics, who all went on to become like, you know, the New York Times columnist of today.
So when we're looking at, you know, those traditional advertising means that you were doing before, and then like leveraging now, I mean, let's just take that Howard Dean example. Okay. If you were to do a similar campaign in 2025, what would that look like?
I think that it would, you know, the Trump campaign in 2024 did a really good job of kind of capturing the moment and the zeitgeist. And, I think looking ahead and, what is the 2028 presidential going to look like? It's going to be a lot more AI. There's just the beginnings of AI in this campaign cycle. And, when I get advertised to, it's like, advertising to Ryan Davis. He's a progressive man who's 40, who votes, and he lives in Maryland. And that's like the information they know about me, maybe a little bit more. But with AI, it's going to know every single thing I've ever clicked, and it's going to feed me the exact red meat that's going to get me excited about a candidate or make me angry about an issue or whatever that may be. So all that we thought was going to start to happen in this cycle, that's going to happen in 2028. And then you've got all the bad actors who are going to make the deep fakes of the candidates. And, we just saw the littlest bit of this. And we saw like so few that each of them got reported, and it was easy to debunk them. But I think at scale is when it gets scary, because when you have 10, 15 beautiful quality deep fakes coming out a day that are all have to be debunked, you can't do it. You can't debunk all of them. So I think that's going to be a big thing. And then besides AI, the good and the bad of AI, I do think influencer came into its own in 2024. Both campaigns had their own strategies, but now I think we understand that this sort of new media platforms that exist now. It's like you got to think of influencer on the social side. You got to think of streamers. You got to think of podcasters and substackers. And so influence is across a bunch of platforms, and new media is not just social media. It's not just podcasting. It's a lot of decentralized platforms. And you have to have a strategy for all these different audiences and all these different ways you plan to talk to people.
I think, you touch on AI there, essentially for developing ICPs, ideal customer profiles for people. And I think it's such a powerful tool to leverage when done right, essentially going fishing and casting out your lure to attract the right fish. And that lure is created by that ICP that's developed through AI. Because I can't speak to a 40-year-old female that needs to get microblading done. I don't know what her pain points are. I could sit here and research it and spend hours on it. But at the end of the day, my Claude project that has all the data filled into it knows the exact answer, and I can get it in a second and create a message that can resonate with the audience. And I think that becomes more and more important in this age of AI. So how right now with people first, maybe with business and the personal side of it, how are you best leveraging AI right now?
So we use AI to help streamline the communications with the creators. So, a big part of the business is the back and forth between the client and the creator. We have organizers that help with that, but we have AI that helps sort of facilitate that process. We're actually out there right now raising around to build out a full sort of app that will have AI as a creative brainstorm application on both the client and the creator side. So the client can brainstorm ideas for creative prompts, and the creator can brainstorm, ideas for ways to respond to a creative prompt. But one of the things we really think as an organization is that real people are going to matter more, and that you're going to see a lot of ads that have the little AI stickers, and we're going to start seeing them on LinkedIn and on Meta, where AI content's going to disclose that it's AI. And so having real people who exist in the world talk about your product or your organization or your brand, to me, in a world where there's so much AI of varying qualities, you're going to have really good AI. You're going to have a lot of AI slop, though. And if you can make content that is authentic and real, that is personalized, not to the degree that AI is personalized, but personalized by having someone who fits that customer profile, making an authentic piece of content, I think that's still going to be better than this sort of AI replica that is designed to, kind of speak to you directly.
That's such a good point. And it really leans into the importance of building that personal brand, doesn't it? Because there's going to be a premium on those human to human communication, the time invested into making a YouTube video, you know, there's going to be a premium on that type of work and that type of effort in a world where everything has these AI stickers on it, you know, and where you can, you know, because I think at least through the experience that we have as an agency, you know, we've done a lot of research into comparing AI generated copy versus human copy, and human copy won 9 times out of 12 of the tests. And a lot of that had to do with the human nuances that are used in the copy, which people naturally will see that and be like, oh, well, they'll stop from scrolling and pay attention to it. But the minute they see a word like unlock, elevate, delve, they're on to the next one, right? So,
right. Or too many M dashes is another one. You know, I think that AI will get better at, I mean, you know, Sam Harris was talking about this, like, you know, there might be, you can see AI becoming sort of the best background scorer of commercials in the world, doing really good music that fits great for the background of advertisements. And, you know, nobody would really care about that. It's maybe people who score commercials would care about that. But like, if you're reading a novel, do you want to read a novel, even if it's a really good novel, if there's no like brain behind it? Or do you want to watch a 2.5 hour movie in the cinema if there's no people involved? I mean, isn't part of the fun of going to the movies like knowing Ryan Reynolds and knowing the drama and having like just some backstory? You know, isn't that a little bit of it? And AI has none of that, you know, appeal. And we were talking about before that we were recording about how you do a lot of these conferences, and like real life is still a thing. And in a world of AI, isn't those real life appearances even more impactful?
I don't want to sit and watch a hockey game full of robots playing hockey. I don't want to, if I want to do that, I'll just throw on my NHL 95 for Sega Genesis and let the computer go at it. You know, like it's
Exactly.
like, you know, it's there's something to be said for the emotion that's involved into any endeavor. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, all right. So things are changing so fast, like so fast in the digital landscape, right? Like the things that we were selling 6 months ago, we are no longer selling today. It's just the way it goes. So, you know, with the digital landscape constantly evolving, what are some of the emerging trends that you foresee happening?
So, you know, I think some of these things we were talking about, AI personalization, I think the sort of measurement side of things is catching up. So it's been complicated, certainly on the influencer side and on out of home, but I think they're getting to be more sophisticated about the ways they can do sort of these mixed measurement models to really understand like how well is advertising working. And I think AI is going to play a really interesting role in reporting, because I feel like sometimes we're overwhelmed with metrics, and as marketers it's like difficult to know what are the real things I need to focus on, like what's actually going to drive. Is it like landing page conversions? Is it like what's the magic number that's really going to be the game changer? And I think AI is going to be really good at helping us look at all this data over time and understand, you know, what we should be doing, what tests we should be running, you know, in ways that, you know, we're going to look back at things like Optimizely and these like ABCD testing world as like the, you know, Stone Age. And I wonder if we will see a resurgence of, again, like, you know, I talked a bit about why I think influencer and authentic content has a real role to play in like a world of AI slop, but also like real creative, like really interesting creative that almost is like anti-AI and how real it is. You know, I think there's some fun stuff happening in Experiential where they're doing things like almost like special effects movie sets in real life, and they're recording people's reactions to it. And I like it a lot because it's like you see it really happening on the streets of Seattle or whatever. It's you know, it's really happening. And then when it kind of like is recirculated online, there's like an authenticity to it. And I just feel like we might enter like a world where the top marketing is really creative, because to get noticed, you have to be really good. And so people are going to be really pushing these boundaries and doing fun stuff that sort of mixes real life, the real life experience with the virtual in a way that like proves that I'm real and that it's like not AI.
I can foresee it, and you're starting to see it now with some of the apps out there. Like you can legitimately put up a photo of yourself in like a Game of Thrones type setting, and almost create your own storyboard of commercials through Facebook ads, for example, at scale so quickly. Come up with your own ideas, your own themes, your own story to tell. Maybe you have better insight on the role of AI in storytelling and how that can be best leveraged for organizations to tell those stories.
Are you getting traffic to your business's website, but it's not converting into sales the way you would like? You need to turn those conversations into customers. Introducing Chatello.ai. Chatello isn't just another AI agent. It's a custom-built AI that understands your business inside and out, delivering 24/7 support to your customers and your clients. Go over to Chatello.ai and request a demo today. Chatello.ai provides instant, human-like live support, instant answers 24/7, customizable support, insights and analytics, accurate responses. Go on over to Chatello.ai and book your demo today.
I mean, there are a lot of tools out there now. Ground Media has a really interesting app called Story Heat, where they break down individual parts of an ad or a piece of content, and they're looking for the emotionally resonant responses, and then allow you to sort of put the ad together in a way that works. And all the responses are done with this sort of live panel that you're picking exactly sort of the demographics of the people you're looking to respond to the content. So like stuff like that is happening. That's really fun. It's using AI and machine learning, like access to these sort of live panels that I think is exciting. We're entering an era where every decade, I feel like I say this since I started following marketing, probably in the 90s when I was like a teenager. Like, wow, like, I used to tell this story where it was amazing that Target would send a woman something in the mail when Target thought that she was pregnant, and it would be like this, you're expecting, and they would do this because any combination of the woman buying like certain vitamins with certain other things would trigger this. And this is like 15 years ago, and to me that was like so incredible. Like, can you imagine anything more like personal than that? And now that happens 50 times a day, right? We're living inside Minority Report, and you're walking down the street, and the marketing is so specific to you.
100%. I fear that. Do you fear this at all? Is the AI dependency dilemma? Is that you use it so much that you become so used to using it that it hinders your creativity?
I worry about this all the time. I see this with we encourage like AI use. Like, if you want a ChatGPT account, we encourage that. We think it's, we talk about how to use it, what it's good at, what it's not good at. But then we'll have, folks who will use it, and you'll read through the document, and it's like, dude, did you read this? Like, it doesn't actually make sense. It's not actually responding to the prompt the client gave us. And you do get this where the people kind of glaze over, and it's like they become copiers of text and putting it in. And I'm like, well, that's certainly a job AI can do. It can copy text from 3 different places and put it into an email. So you've got to be adding like value, and you've got to be that totally worries me. And I find myself sometimes over relying on AI and being like, I should take a step back. Like, did I need AI do that math problem for me? And no, I think I could have used my brain for that one. But I do know what AI doesn't know. Like, I do read through everything. I don't like AI's writing a lot of the times. I think it overwrites, and you can tell when something's like 3 paragraphs, it could be 1. Like, that, to me, that's like a telltale sign, and that's AI. Do you worry about that? I mean, do you see this?
Yeah, 100%. Like, well, first of all, I mean, I always have to, every prompt I feel like I need to use the word concise, keep it concise for that reason. But I was on a flight to London a few months back, and I was ready to do my blog content for the month, get my Chat GPT up and going, and had the entire plan ready to go. And I go onto the flight, and I had no Wi-Fi. I was like, shit. Now what do I do? So I had to try to use my brain, and I had writer's block for a good like hour or two sitting there at a screen, just like, what do I even write here? Got past it though, but I kind of had an epiphany, and I realized that was a muscle I hadn't working so long, and I started losing my creativity.
Yeah.
So through that, I was like, damn, I really have to be more better prepared on how I'm leveraging the AI to not stifle my creativity. And I think a lot of people out there are just becoming, to your point, like so reliant on it so much that it's like, rewrite this email for me. Well, did it really need to be rewritten? Like, and it's happened more times than not now.
So much of LinkedIn, it's really funny to me because LinkedIn has added these options where like the comments can be AI. So much of LinkedIn is like AI talking to AI, where AI is responding, and then AI is gonna reblog, and it's gonna be. So it's just like, if I were LinkedIn, I would, I understand like they need to generate a lot of engagement and keep people on the platform, but it doesn't make me want to engage with content if I know that all of it is just like bots. Like,
it's depressing to think about, because I mean, any salesperson will tell you it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
Send out 1,000 of these spammy mails and we'll maybe get one sale out of it, right? So they just keep doing it, contributing to the noise. At some point or another, I mean, people need to kind of wise up and focus more on the quality over quantity, because doing the quantity game does nothing for your brand.
And one of the things I think that's cool about influencer, especially the kind of work we do with the sort of precision, harder to find niches, is finding that exact person who can speak to your buyer. So, is your buyer, and somebody in aviation merchandising, then boom, we can find those people to talk about your product. So like, if you stop thinking about influencer as Justin Bieber and you think about who influences my buyer and get really specific, it opens you up to like some really interesting, opportunities for the kind of voices that, matter to your organization, your brand.
Tell me a bit about your company, People First. Who are you looking for? Who do you help? Who do you serve?
So we started, primarily focused on democratic politics. In 2019, we noticed there was nobody who was doing influencers specifically around democratic politics. Soon after the pandemic happened, we got involved in public health. We're doing a lot of pro-vaccine, pro-health messaging. And now 5 years in, we work across to the political, nonprofit, and commercial verticals. So selling everything from Kamala Harris to White Castle, so the whole spectrum, I think. And we work, we find precision creators, so those micro influencers. So we can find those capital I influencers, those beautiful people who live on the coast, to talk about your beauty or your travel brand. Like, for sure we can find them, but we can also find the single mom in the Atlanta suburbs to talk about this sort of unique product or an organization that might benefit her family. So that's sort of the model. It's like, it's like finding, it's always been, the old saying, right, from McLuhan, that the medium is the message. Absolutely true. But the messenger is also the message in today's age. So, and what's cool is even if you only have 500 followers, if you are a single mom gymnast in Atlanta, and your target is single mom gymnast in Atlanta, we can take your content and you can put it up on social and on streaming to a variety of different really good ad platforms targeting these single moms who are gymnasts, and you can scale the content, and it works incredibly well that way. So you could, I think it's important to stop thinking about influencer as just people with millions of followers. Everybody has influence. Everybody has the capacity to be influential to a community or to a person, and it's just about finding the right person to speak to your audience. Does that make sense?
100%, and it's probably much more effective going after a group of workout moms in their 40s that have that following of 500 and getting a handful of those, because most people would trust them more than probably an influencer with 1 million followers, right? Because you know what their game is, you know what the end game is for that influencer. That end game for the single mom in her 40s that likes to work out and is recommending some sort of workout regimen, you can trust her. I think there's more credibility to that.
Yeah, we've seen that, the engagement rates with these smaller creators is so high because, people follow Kim Kardashian, not because they think they're Kim Kardashian, it's aspirational, but they follow somebody with 3,000 followers who, because there's somebody who they think they could be friends with, or they might be a member of their community, and like the level of trust is entirely different.
So do you have any sort of techniques or tactics to when you vet an influencer?
Yeah, we vet two different ways. We have obviously automated tool that's looking for things that any brand wouldn't want to have their brand affiliated with. Everything from racism to pornography to vulgarity, all that stuff. We filter for. But because we also work in finance and pharmaceutical and politics, we'll get very specific requests. Things like the influencer should never have said something nice about a vitamin supplement. Tough to find a creator who hasn't said something nice about a vitamin supplement. So that's something that we would go then filter for specifically and say, Phil's great, but Phil, talked about creatine in 2017. So, so we've got the computer, and then we also have real human organizers who then go through and also look at the creators' profiles to make sure that it's really a fit, beyond just sort of what the AI and the machine learning tell us.
And it's basing that fit on what?
It's basing that fit on the audience of the creator, the engagement of the creator, the type of content the creators made. And
you're manually matching that up with the client?
Yeah. Well, it's not manual. It's we in the back end basically say this is the audience the client's looking to reach, and then when we're doing the search, it's telling us that. What's interesting though is there's a real way that you can sort of lean into your prediction too much, and what we found is we'll have content that we think will not scale. Well, this content does not work, and it'll get put in with 40 other pieces of content, and then all of a sudden it'll optimize, and it's driving the cheapest conversions by 15%. So we do try not to you can be too specific with the way that you tune things, and then you kind of don't leave yourself open to some of the kind of randomness that can come from this sort of work. Don't be too precious, I think, is important when you can help it.
It's funny. We see that so much on the creative side where it's like, a client's like, I really like this image and I want to use this font and this picture. You got to use this picture. I'm like, I'll let the algorithm decide what works. Okay, how about that? Because the amount of times that I've thought something was going to crush it and never did happens every day.
Yeah.
So
we get so much pushback from clients who only want to use video. And then at the end of a campaign, almost always in the top 5 individual ads will be a static post from a creator that's driven the third cheapest conversions. And it's clients need to realize it's not about what your favorite piece of content is. It's about what's going to actually work on the back end, and nobody knows exactly what that's going to be. So
and what you said right there happens all the time. So this week it's an image, next week it's going to be a story, and the week after that it's going to be a long form piece of content on Reels, so it changes all the time. That's why it's so important to constantly be testing, and obviously testing is something that's important to your strategy, right?
Yeah, and also we're not like any single network. So people are like, well, what happens to you guys if TikTok goes away? It's like, oh, we work across, YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest and LinkedIn and podcasts. We see the influencer creator space as being, all these things. And I do think that sometimes brands get really focused on, influencer as a TikTok strategy. And, obviously TikTok's like a big part of it. But, if you're talking to women over 40 and you're only on TikTok, and not on Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest, you're missing out on like places women are having conversations.
Yeah, the omni-channel approach is definitely the one that's suggested. And also, it's a simple fact. And when we talk about ad frequency, it's ad frequency across the smorgasbord of platforms, right?
Yeah.
Not just ad frequency on Meta, So I think that's an important one to note too, and ensuring, proper retargeting is in place to build that familiarity with the audience, which is super important. So I'm sure you do all this stuff, especially when you're doing that top of funnel influencer awareness stuff, is keeping them in that ecosystem, those users in that ecosystem that opted into that influencer, right?
Yeah, and we see influencer work. It can work in different places in the funnel, and the clients that get the biggest bang for their buck are the ones that are not in a hurry. They take a breath and they say, okay, let's make some content for the top of the funnel. Let's make some content for the bottom of the funnel, and they're going to be different. They're going to have stronger CTAs. The CTA is going to be in a different place. And when you take the time to kind of build that funnel correctly, I mean, this the payoff is huge with a proper funnel.
Do you find, what do you do when you, in the situation where you have an influencer you're working with gets shadow banned? I'm sure you've had that happen before. What do you do in that scenario?
Yeah, it can happen. I mean, again, we are not only relying on the reach of the organic reach of that creator. So, if that happens, that's worse for the creator than for our client, because we're probably working with 25 other folks who are giving us organic reach, and maybe that piece of content from the creator will still perform really well, in paid or on the landing page. Or we've had content, static content be used in billboards, on door hangers. I really like this idea of, it's not just a decentralization of like the broadcasting, it's like the decentralization of the content creation. It's like, creators are they're like part of your creative team who are making your bottom up content. They're not going to ever replace your brand content, but they're going to add to it. And then I think the brands and organizations that get out front are the ones that are going to be mixing and matching and playing with creator content, mixing with brand content, splicing it all together, having, how do you make it all feel like one world? And nobody's doing that exactly yet, but I think you start to see more and more of that.
Do you have a process for storyboarding content for a client in terms of influencers that you use, at what point of the funnel they're going to use that content? Do you have a process in place for storyboarding that?
We have a kickoff process where we, work with clients to understand their objectives at various places in the funnel. Because we so often are like not working directly with the end client, like we're working with a creative shop or a paid shop. Like we're coming in the process sometimes where everything is baked and we just are handed a creative brief and it's like, this is the brief and there's no changes. And then sometimes where we're working with a client and we're doing social listening and creator panels and helping develop that messaging, if we're coming in earlier. So we're really collaborative because we can work sort of anywhere in the process.
Ryan, if our audience has any questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll give you that for the show notes, and easy to find at ryan.davis@peoplefirst.cc. And I've got a monthly digital strategy newsletter called The Month in Digital, where I read so much about digital strategy and try to do a recap of everything that you might have missed in the month before. And I started this because I found it myself sort of overwhelming to keep up. And I'm like, well, I got to make myself read more. And I'm like, well, if I do this, then every month I'm like, reading about each platform in a methodical way. And so I'm glad that so many people are enjoying it, and I'm it's definitely keeping me sharp.
So smart to do that. It forces you to dig. Like, my battle every single morning is trying to get to my inbox from what matters to what doesn't. And, the amount of unsubscribes that I do every day, for whatever reason, because I didn't like the subject line. I'm just trying to get onto the next piece of content that matters most to me. And at the end of the day, I'm almost consuming nothing. So to actually set that in place, to force yourself to go out there and dig deep into content, gives you that knowledge and then that ongoing routine, because now your subscribers are expecting it on a monthly basis, right?
Yes. So I throughout the month I've been reading things. I'm building out this big Google Doc, and then once a month for 4 hours, I sit there and I go through, and I'm like, well, this was interesting 3 weeks ago, but it's really not that relevant now. And that's sort of the fun part. It's like, what really sticks, what really matters at the end of the day.
What are a few big sources that you rely on an ongoing basis for your content?
I think Marketing Brew is fantastic. There's a newsletter called Future Social that I think is really, really good. Oh my gosh, I'm missing out on so many folks that I really like. It's tough. I read a lot of newsletters. Future Social is one I've really been enjoying though.
We'll just subscribe to yours and we'll just get all the information. And Awesome. Cool. Ryan, this has been great. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Have a great one.
Hey, thank you, podcast listener, for checking out that episode of Drop the Mic. If you liked that episode, I would love it if you went on over to your podcast platform and left us a 5-star review. And if you don't want to miss an upcoming episode of Drop the Mic, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again. See you soon.